the Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Hi there. Thanks for downloading and thanks for listening to the Best in the World with Richard Parr. How are you doing today? Are you well? Well, it looks like you're ready to learn. Learn from the best. And today, it doesn't get any better than this. We have got the greatest snooker player of all time. He is the Tiger Woods of snooker. He is the Michael Schumacher of snooker. He is the Michael Jordan of snooker. Our guest today is Stephen Hendry, the 7-time world champion. It's a fantastic chat where you can really learn how to become the best in the world. I'll be talking about my chat with Stephen in just a moment, but I've got so much to get through on today's show. I've got to cover an amazing weekend of sport. We had the Euro 2016 final, we had Wimbledon, we had the Formula 1 British Grand Prix, and we had UFC 200. A weekend packed full of sport. Plus, I promised last week that this week I'd be telling you about my halfway goals. Remember back in January, episode 9 with Ben Askren, the MMA 1FC world champion. Remember that episode 9, back in January, I set my goals for the year. And I was going to give you my half-term report, my 6 months report of how I'm getting on with those goals for the year. I'll be doing that in just a moment. But you may remember that one of the goals was to listen to 12 audiobooks in a year. So at the halfway stage, it should be 6. I'll tell you in just a moment whether I've achieved that or not. But the thing is, audiobooks are a great way to listen and learn from the best, exactly like we do here on the Best in the World with Richard Parr podcast. But you know what? Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. They are one of the best audiobook suppliers in all of the world. And you know what? They're so good to me, they're so good to you, that I am offering you a free 30-day download with Audible. All you've got to do is go to audibletrial.com/best. Write that down again. I'll say it one more time. It's audibletrial.com/best. You get a free 30-day trial plus one free audiobook download. It's a product I use and it's one I highly recommend you should too. So what a weekend of sport. UFC 200 was on Saturday. The return of the beast, Brock Lesnar, against Mark Hunt. Lesnar won on a unanimous decision after 3 rounds as he was unable to knock out Hunt. Hunt was the number 8 heavyweight in the world. And my goodness, they say Samoans are tough, but this was incredibly impressive from Hunt in the fact he just survived a hell of a beating. Lesnar was pummeling and pounding, and Hunt, he pretty much had to carry Lesnar's weight for the whole 3 rounds, and I was amazed that he didn't get knocked out, so all credit to him. But Lesnar looked good. He looked leaner. He certainly looked leaner in the legs from his wrestling days, and of course in UFC they advertised the main event for SummerSlam this summer, one of WWE's pay-per-views, and it's going to be Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton. The two of them came up the WWE developmental system back in the early 2000s, so they've got quite a good rapport, so the chemistry should be good. So it could be an interesting match at SummerSlam, but it's going to be quite interesting to see how Lesnar now juggles both WWE and UFC. I think he may have the bug of UFC back, but he's also signed a contract with WWE. So whether he can juggle both of them, only time will tell. Congratulations to Andy Murray for winning Wimbledon. He was a convincing win against Milos Raonic. Well done for Raonic to reach in the final, but Murray's return was always a little bit too strong for Raonic, who has got a very strong serve, but Murray showed that he is up there with the very best with his 2nd Wimbledon title. Well done to him. Lewis Hamilton won at the British Grand Prix, so it was a great weekend for British sports fans on home soil. But it wasn't a good day for France football fans on home soil as they saw their team lose to Portugal in the Euro 2016 final. A very boring affair. This tournament has had its high spots. There's been fantastic moments like Shaqiri's overhead goal for Switzerland, like Hal Robson-Kanu's goal for Wales against Belgium, like Luka Modric's goal against Turkey for Croatia. There's been some absolute crackers. I think Marek Hamšík scored a great goal as well. Ronaldo's against Hungary. Incredible moments, but there's been some shocking matches in between. And unfortunately, the final was one of them. I'm not sure that the 24-team format actually worked. I think it brought in too much negative football. I think there were some smaller teams who were a little bit more defensive, and unfortunately, all it led were the more famous, bigger teams just trying to probe and get through them. And frankly, they didn't have enough ingenuity or ability or creativity to break them down. So very often we ended up with stalemates, or, as you saw in some games, some very late goals. And it was a very late goal that proved to be the difference in extra time for Portugal, for Eder. You know, they were without Cristiano Ronaldo for most of the match after he came off injured after about 20 minutes. It wasn't an attack by a moth. I know there were lots of moths there, but it was just a collision with the French midfielder Dimitri Payet. But congratulations to Portugal. Commiserations for France. I did think they were arguably one of the best teams at the tournament. Certainly with Antoine Griezmann, they had a fine forward and some attacking flair from players such as Paul Pogba and Dimitri Payet, certainly in the earlier games. But it was a good tournament without being a great tournament. I wouldn't call it a terrible one, as many people have, but it was good because there were the high points, but there were a few dud matches in there as well. So, is it great or is it a dud when it comes to my goals for the year? Now, you may remember in my podcast 9 with Ben Askren, I went through my goals for the year, and they were to read 25 books, listen to 12 audiobooks, learn Spanish, attend the Rio Olympics, possibly learn jiu-jitsu, become more charitable, and learn stand-up comedy. So, let me first tell you how I'm doing on the book front. In fact, I like to jot everything in this app called Evernote. I don't know if you use it, but it syncs to all of your devices. I think they've just restricted it now to 2 devices on their basic package, but I think you can use more devices if you want to subscribe and pay a monthly fee or whatever. I haven't done that yet. So let me just count the books I've read so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've read 13 books so far this year, 6 months in. So that is on target. 25 for the year. I actually aim for 12 after 6 months. I've nearly finished book 14. So I'm well ahead of target there. So I can give myself a little pat on the back there. Well done, Richard. Well done. I'll be putting the list of those books on richardparr.net, so stay tuned for that. Same with the audiobooks, aiming for 12. I've actually finished 6. Is it 6? Hold on, let me double check on my Evernote. I've just finished one more now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've finished 8 audiobooks. Only 4 more to go for the year, so I'm pleased with that. As far as learning Spanish goes, I'm not doing very well there. I went to Madrid back in February. I tried really hard on the app, Duolingo, great app. Download it for free if you can. But after that week in Spain where I tried to have conversations, but I didn't get very far, I haven't done much more. So I need to open the books up again, maybe listen to some Spanish podcasts, maybe read Marca, the sports newspaper every day online, and try and get a bit better at that. Attend the Rio Olympics. Well, they're not here yet. They're another month away. I actually haven't finalised my plans yet for it, but I do hope to be there. So I'm keen that I'll be able to tick that off the list. One of the others was to perhaps do jiu-jitsu. I don't think that's going to happen right now. I've got a bit of a problem with one of my toes. It's a bit weird thing to say, I know, but I have, and I'm not sure I'll be able to do that. Instead, I'm going for this 21-day fitness challenge, which I mentioned last week, going gluten and dairy free for 3 weeks, and doing workouts every single day. So I'm going to keep with that at the moment. Unfortunately, I haven't done anything yet to become more charitable. I'm disappointed with that. I need to work a little bit harder reaching out to charities. And if you want to be involved with the podcast, if you have a charity and a good cause, please let me know. Just send me an email on the site, richardparr.net. There is a contact page. You can contact me there. And finally, try and have a go at stand-up comedy. Well, I haven't given that a go yet, but I have been reading a book called The Secrets to Comedy Writing. So I'm hoping that might give me a little hand, and we'll see how we get along with that. So those are my goals. I'd love to hear how your goals for the year have been getting on. Maybe send me a tweet at Richard_Parr, or send me a message on the website richardparr.net, or even on the Facebook page Best in the World with Richard Parr. Lots of ways to get in contact with me. So my guest today is the greatest snooker player of all time, Stephen Hendry. He won 7 world titles, 5 in a row between 1992 and 1996. In my chat with him, he talks about the mental and psychological edge which allowed him to win so many world titles. He talks about what he misses most since he retired. Does he think anyone can ever beat his total of 7 world crowns, and his feelings towards other top stars in his day such as Steve Davis and Jimmy White, and also how the game is expanding in China. So a lot of really top things you can learn from Stephen Hendry. So let's get to it. Let's learn from the best in the world.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
So Stephen Hendry, welcome to the Best in the World with Richard Parr. So you've been retired for a few years now. Are you enjoying it, or do you miss playing at all?
I have been enjoying it. I've done some different things. I've been spending a lot of time in China as an ambassador for a type of Chinese pool. But no, I do miss it, and it's the sort of the last year or so I've started to miss it again. I think working with the BBC as commentator and pundit, you get to see, obviously, go to the venues like the Crucible and the Masters, and sometimes you're watching them play and you think, I could actually, they're not doing anything that I couldn't do, and it sort of gets you itching to get back.
So is that something which might happen soon?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm prepared to put in the hours of practice that's required to get, the sort of work I was doing when I was at the top of the game, sort of 5-6 hours a day, sort of 5-6 days a week. I'm not prepared to do that anymore. But that was one of the reasons of many that I retired, that I wasn't enjoying the practice and couldn't make myself do what was required.
Mm. So, yeah, I want to get into a bit more detail of that routine and everything there. But you mentioned China. How big is the sport getting over there right now?
I mean, snooker's been very popular in China for years, and my first visit there was 1987. So it's been around a long time. I think, obviously, with the emergence of Ding Junhui, the sort of last 10, 15 years, he's obviously... when a country has someone to follow who's a top player, obviously it makes it a lot easier for the game to expand. And over the past years, there's been many tournaments and many more professionals from China. What I do, I say I'm an ambassador for Chinese 8-ball pool. As I say, it's something completely different to what I was doing before. And I've been to sort of 50, 60 cities around China. And the sort of the appetite for billiard sports is huge. So
could we see a world champion from China soon?
Yeah, obviously Ding's this year. He had a great chance and lost to Mark Selby, so there's no reason why he can't go that one step further. I think it's inevitable in the future that there will be a Chinese world champion because there's so many of them playing.
Mm-hmm. Is there one part of the game that they're missing? What is there like a lacking edge that they don't have?
I think the talent is definitely there. I think with Ding, it's been a mental thing, especially as regards to the World Championship. He's won many events all over the world, but never really played his best at the World Championship, the biggest event. This year he did play well, partly due to the fact he actually had to qualify because he dropped out the top 16. So, I actually said when I was working for BBC, maybe the pressure was lifted off him a little bit, the expectation, because he had to qualify. So yeah, it's a mental thing that I think that, a lot of the foreign players have to get over in regards to the World Championship.
And obviously, between 92 and 96, you won the World Championships 5 years consecutively, I believe. Mentally, you must have just felt at home. Is that something which helped? That every time you go there, you knew that, I can win this? Is that something which these players are lacking and you had back then?
Very, very much so. I almost took for granted winning at the World Championship. You're right. I felt so comfortable at the Crucible. I always played my best snooker at the sort of biggest occasions. Obviously the Masters as well at the Conference Centre. I won that 5 years in a row. And that was, I consider the World and the Masters the two most prestigious events in the game. So yeah, I did play my best snooker under the sort of most pressurised conditions and in the best venues. And it's obviously it's not something that everybody has, and that's what separates the sort of people, the sort of multiple winners from people who just win now and then.
And obviously, like you said, you're very comfortable there. But did you ever feel like invincible and almost overconfident? And if so, how would you keep yourself grounded?
I did feel invincible. So that period you said when I won it 5 years in a row, I did feel invincible at the Crucible. I couldn't see anybody beating me. And it was obviously the long frame matches as well. Suited me as well. I could not relax completely, but I just felt that the players weren't good enough to beat me over a long distance. So yeah, it was a big advantage to have that sort of. You could have most of the opponents beat before they even got on the table. You had that psychological edge over them.
You said that you need about 5 or 6 hours a day practice over 5 or 6 days a week. When you were at that top form and you did start to feel invincible and that you could beat the players, did that practice ever let up, or was that always consistent? Was that always there?
It was pretty consistent. I didn't, throughout my sort of, 20, 30 year career, it wasn't a fact of me doing that week in, week out. For all those years, there was times when I would take it easy a little bit, and certainly towards the latter of my career, that's when I started, taking more weekends off, and then maybe having more half days and things like that. And that, I think, in any top sport, that's a slippery slope. Once you start not giving it 100%. But no, I definitely didn't. I wasn't. Snooker was my life and my career, and I loved it, and I loved the fact that you get to see the results from your hard work. There were times where I'd win a tournament on a Sunday night and be back playing on a Monday morning practicing because I wanted to win the next one. I was so hungry to win everything. But yeah, there is, there was times when you have to sort of, take your foot off the pedal a little bit.
And did it always feel like a game, like a sport for you, or did it ever come across like feeling like a job?
I think it very quickly stopped being a hobby. Obviously, when you first pick up a cue, it was 2 weeks before my 13th birthday, I got a small tail for my Christmas. So then, and it's always a hobby. Then it's something that you look forward to playing, and it's say there's no pressure. I think the minute you turn professional and you become, a contender to win tournaments, you start winning tournaments. It's straight. You still enjoy it. You still love the fact of winning. That's the biggest thing that was taken away from me when I stopped. When I retired and it stopped. It wasn't the enjoyment of playing; it was the enjoyment of winning for me that was important. But yeah, I think for me it became quite quickly. I turned professional at 16. That it wasn't a hobby anymore. It was more of a job and more of a career.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Isn't it great to have Stephen Hendry on this week's podcast? We'll have more from him in just a moment. But I just want to tell you about today's sponsor, that's Audible. For you, the listeners of the Best in the World podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. They've got over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle or MP3 player. I've just been listening to Quiet Leadership by Carlo Ancelotti, and I would say that it is my favourite audiobook of the year. The best one I've listened to all year. It's very, very good. It gives an insight from a top level manager coach from the world of football. Ancelotti has managed teams such as AC Milan, Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, and he's just moving to Bayern Munich. And a lot of the things he talks about is the close relationships a manager needs to build with the team around him, with the players, with his fellow coaches, and with the board and president and management above. It's a very interesting insight into the world of football, but it also has pieces of information which you can use if you're a manager or you're a leader in your job or in your team or in any walk of life. I'd highly recommend it. It's Quiet Leadership by Carlo Ancelotti, and you can get that 30-day free download, and perhaps that could be your free download. It could be Carlo Ancelotti's Quiet Leadership. All you've got to do is go to audibletrial.com/best. That's audibletrial.com/best. Let's return to my chat with the 7-time snooker world champion, Stephen Hendry.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
And did you have any rituals in any of the matches, and did they change at all during your career?
No rituals, and nothing special. More or less, any match I turned up for, I turned up half an hour before the match would start. Maybe have 10 minutes on the practice table and just go to the dressing room, relax, maybe read a paper. Just try and take my mind off it, and I was able to switch on as soon as I got out into the arena.
Do you think that's really important, not to be thinking about the match in that half an hour before? I've heard other people. We had a rugby player on, I think it was David Campese, was talking about how he'd try not to think about the game so he doesn't get nervous, and then when he goes out there, everything he's practiced and everything he's learned and all the experience he has just almost returns to him. Would you say that's something similar?
Yeah, I think so. That's very similar to me. I just, I was able to switch on. I think that's it's a talent to have as well, that you can actually switch off in the dressing room. Say Invincible at the middle of a match for 15 minutes. I was able just to go into the dressing room, as I say, read a paper, have a cup of tea, and just if there was someone with me in my leg, I had 2 or 3 coaches, maybe have a chat. But more, I just wanted to be left alone with my thoughts and just completely chill out. And as soon as I went in the arena, I was able to switch on again. And I think that's something that not everybody has.
Mm. And I've noticed one of your ways of relaxing and spending your free time is playing a bit of golf. And I saw last month you were playing in the Wentworth Pro-Am. How much did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I loved it. It's quite nerve-wracking. You're obviously out of your comfort zone because I'm not a golfer. So you've got these thousands of people watching you doing something that you're not that good at. But no, I loved it. The chance to play a course like that and the condition they have it for a proper event was great. It was great fun.
And obviously there's lots of other sports stars there, from football and cricket and all different types of things. If you could spend one day with another sports star from any generation, who would it be? Or have you had that pleasure already?
No, I haven't. I mean, it has to be Tiger Woods, I think. He's just a phenomenal winner. Again, someone like I used to be quite into Formula One. Someone like Michael Schumacher. Any sort of multiple winners. I'd love to sort of spend a day and see if it, a lot of things that we did to succeed were in common. I think a lot of things would be the sort of work ethic and the will to win, the hunger to win more and more, and not just settle for one event or one world title. You want to win multiple world titles.
And you've, of course, done that in snooker, and you've got a record of 36 ranking titles, 7 world championships. Do you think those records could ever be beaten?
I have to be honest. I don't think the 7 world titles will get beaten now. I think Sullivan has had opportunities, but I honestly can't see him at the age of 41, 42 winning 3 more. I don't know exactly what age he is. He's won 5. I can't see him winning 3 more. I think Judd Trump was if maybe he focused his mind and his game a bit better sort of 3 or 4 years ago, he got to the semi-finals and since then has not pushed on. He was at the right age to possibly do it. I don't think he'll do it now. I think that's one record that I think is pretty safe.
And as we look forward in the game of snooker, obviously there have been a few changes over the last years. I read that you weren't very impressed with the idea of these best of 7 tournaments and things like that. What changes would you like to see in the sport, if any?
I think that's the road that I think Barry Hearn wants to go down. These shorter, bit better for TV, shorter matches. I myself don't see them as a test. I think the Crucible, they want. You tend to see a lot of sort of young qualifier or sort of low ranked players doing very well in these tournaments, the best of 7s, but you see them come to the Crucible and they can't cope with the pressure of these long matches, and that's I think I would like to see maybe 2 or 3 more tournaments with longer frame matches. So I don't think perhaps the top players are. I think the top players should be given a bit more support. I think Barry Hearn's offer how many 100 whatever professionals are, treating them all as the same. But I think in snooker the top players are not treated as top players in the same as some other sports.
So that needs to change. And when you look back on those 7 world title victories, which is your favourite?
The 7th, to break the record, to win the 7th was obviously my ambition, my target. Steve Davis was obviously a great inspiration in my career and one of the biggest influences on my career. So obviously to beat his 6 was a big goal for me, and so that was special. The first one is obviously special. Obviously, I was the youngest and still am, so possibly another record that might not get beaten. I suppose it's the first and the 7th.
Steve Davis said he kind of hated you when you first came onto the scene because you were doing things which a lot of players couldn't do. Did you feel that animosity? Did you have any feelings like that towards him?
Well, it took me about maybe 15 attempts before I actually beat Steve Davis. As I say, when I was some professional, he was the number 1. He was the man that was dominating the game. He was like a winning machine, and that's what I wanted to be. But as soon as I got that first victory, I knew that it was my time then. And it's sort of, I could beat everyone else, but he was sort of last piece in the jigsaw, as it were, for me to become the best or become the top player. So yeah, he was. We went on to have many great battles, and he was always a sort of benchmark for me.
And obviously, Jimmy White must have been pretty frustrated at every time he got to a final of a world championship. Most of the time, he was facing you, and you'd beat him. Was that also part of the confidence building we mentioned earlier? Is that you could beat him, and you almost had that mental edge of when he would go ahead, you'd be like, I can still beat this guy. I've done it before.
There's certainly that comes into it. Obviously the final where we're in the final frame and he missed a black off the spot, you would think he was on his way to beating me then. Another, I think he was 14-8 ahead, and I won 10 frames in a row. I always felt with Jimmy, I knew when he was under pressure. I could tell by his body language. And even if I was behind to Jimmy in a long match like at Sheffield, I always felt if I could get sort of string 2 or 3 frames in a row and get the momentum on my side, and I never ever felt that he could beat me. But obviously that one time when in the final frames, black off a spot in that, obviously that was a time where I think I even looked up to my friends and who were in the audience, thinking that I was out. He actually had beaten me, but he twitched to black and maybe that's a weakness in Jimmy. He's had enough chances. I think it's 6 finals he's been to, and I suppose you have to ask yourself, if you've been to 6 finals and not won one, there's something missing in your game or your mental strength.
Well, I know it's getting near to lunchtime, so I won't keep you for too much longer, Stephen. And one of the things I noticed on your Twitter is you do like to tweet quite a few pictures of your food, tweet what you eat. Would you call yourself a foodie?
Yeah, massive, yeah. But I think obviously through traveling around China, as I say, I've been to sort of 50, 60 cities in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and some of the sort of diverse dishes that you get, obviously you don't get in the UK. So obviously I like to share. But yeah, I think it's much more interesting than sharing stuff on Snooker. No, I've talked enough about Snooker. So yeah, I like to try most things. When I first went to China, I hated the food, but now I love it, and I'll try almost anything.
What's the weirdest thing you've tried?
Bear's claw.
Bear's claw. What does that taste like?
It was in Harbin in North China, and I was taken to this exclusive restaurant with only one table in it, and they brought this dish of bear's claw. It's up about £1,000 for this little dish, and the flavour of it was because of the sauce and stuff. But the way they cooked it was lovely, but the meat itself was not. It was like gristly, stringy. So I tasted it, but I wasn't a fan. But yeah, that's probably the weirdest.
Yeah, I've had horse and alligator before, and that neither of them were particularly good. But bear's claw, I don't think I could go that far. Snails and bear's claw is my limit, I think. Yeah, the same menu. There was wolf and starfish, and I forget what else. It was a strange old meal. Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure I want to try wolf either. It all sounds a bit weird. But Stephen, just before we go, if you want to just give some of our listeners how they can follow you on Twitter and any other kind of social media or any kind of website, that would be wonderful.
I'm on Twitter at sghendry775. I'm also on Instagram. I think it's the same, shhendry775. If you search me, you'll find me. As I say, you might not hear so much about snooker, but you'll see plenty of interesting food.
Brilliant. Well, Stephen Hendry, thank you very much for being on the show, and thank you for being the best in the world.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
All that talk of food with Stephen Hendry has made me hungry, so I'm going to get a bite to eat. But I want to thank you for downloading and listening to this week's show, The Best in the World with Richard Parr. If you enjoyed that, remember 2 weeks ago, I spoke to another world champion in snooker, Shaun Murphy. That was a really great chat. Go onto iTunes, download that, listen to that. Tell me what you think at Richard_Parr on Twitter, on the Facebook page, Best in the World with Richard Parr, or send me a message on the contact page on richardparr.net. I'd love to hear from you. And if you've enjoyed this show, that show, any of the other shows, maybe it was the one with Ellen Hoog, maybe it was the one with John Potter, maybe it was the one with Ian Williams, maybe it was the one with Gary Hunt. If you've liked any of them, I would love it if you would just do me a small favour. Just go to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, and give it a rating and review. I would love it if you would do that for me. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I hope you've really enjoyed learning from Stephen Hendry. More great guests, more world Olympic champions on the way on the podcast. But until next time, have a great week.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.